what to me seems short-sightedness. Two things. One, why couldn't we have done the negotiation for a naval Rafale along with the Air Force Rafale, considering that you knew even then
Yeah, yeah.
that you needed a fighter jets for your Navy? Because you said that Navy realizes more than a decade ago that, hello, our MiGs are kind of getting old. We need new fighter jets. I'm pretty sure the government must have been told. So when you had floated that ambitious MMRCA tender, which fell through medium multi-role combat aircraft under the UPA, stand to reason that you might as well have added 40 odd fighter jets for your Navy. It would have been simpler
Yeah.
because same company you're negotiating with. So if you negotiate one grand deal for two different forces, I'm guessing you would have some savings. And the second point on a similar note is that the MMRCA has now turned into an MRFA,
Yeah.
multi-role fighter
For
aircraft. Yeah,
114 Air Force
yeah.
fighters. Yeah.
Why? Why do
So
you have to repackage that deal when you have already bought Rafale? So there is still this tantalizing possibility that you could end up with another, because Shiv has previously described the Air Force as a museum of fighter jets, and there is still a possibility that the Air Force will end up adding one more different version of fighter jet in its kitty. So why do you have this MRFA if you already are happy with the Rafale?
you
And what happened to the naval
you've
Rafale
gone to
back then?
Dave, you've gone to a very painful place for the Indian Navy. I'm not going to break tradition and sugarcoat my answer. The simple answer to your question over why the Air Force and Navy couldn't have negotiated one common deal and got all these aircraft as part of one deal. The simple reason is the Air Force would not ever deign to share negotiating space
Wow.
with the Navy. Okay.
Wow.
I will take what shit comes my way for having said this. And anyone who wants to argue back with me, I will eat it. The truth is, we can talk until the cows come home about jointmanship, about operating together, about theaterization, etc. But if you can't sit and figure out modernization, capacity creation, weaponization, capital acquisition in an integrated manner, then you can forget about everything else. Because what you've said makes absolute sense, and you're right. It's not like the Indian Navy has now come to know that they need these fighters. They've always known, but then they've, if sense, if the big picture and all these luxurious concepts were part of the everyday way of doing things, I think the military would have a lot of money for other things right now. The fact is, isn't how it works. I don't want to oversimplify it and say, I'm sure there are other reasons as well. There are budget priorities. There are issues of capacity utilization. There's an entire ladder of priorities in terms of what can happen, can't happen in a certain year. It's easy. I'm sure some people listening, and I'm sure officers in the Air Force are going to say, Shiv, it's very easy for you to sit there in that red chair with Dave and talk about why can't Indian Navy and Indian Air Force just sit together and order the same aircraft? I know it's not that simple, but believe me, sometimes it is that simple.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm always suspicious of people who start an argument by saying it's not that simple. Okay. Because oftentimes it is. Okay. And in this particular case, you're right. It could very much have been possible. And let me make the bad news even worse, because you've got 36 Rafales with the Air Force. You've got 26 Rafales that you're negotiating with for the Navy right now, and you've got the MRFA, which you just talked about, in which the Rafale is a contender. Now, if you have a museum of fighters, and I'm not advocating for anyone here, I'm just saying, if you have a museum of fighters, and the entire point of trying to economize and make in India and create capacity here in India is about commonality and saving costs and a bang for your buck and all those wonderful things, then why is there even a contest?
Yes, exactly.
Why is there even a contest? Why are you wasting time with a contest? One part of the Air Force would say, stop all this costly, contest business. Stop wasting everybody's time. You've spent a hell of a lot of money choosing the Rafale already. You've spent a boatload of money creating infrastructure for the Rafale already. You can fool your grandfather about how this is a stopgap arrangement, but the Rafale is not a piece of aluminium. It's a bloody expensive toy. It is not a stopgap. Anyone calling the Rafale a stopgap, either for the Air Force or the Navy, is an idiot. It is not a stopgap. It's the most expensive stopgap in history. So if you're going to commit 80,000 crore, 50,000 crore into a stopgap, then we are not India, boss. We've stopped being India a long time ago.
Yeah.
So let's think about this sensibly. If you've got the Rafale for the Air Force and you're about to get it for the Navy, what is this MRFA? And this MRFA is a contest that has multiple fighters competing,
Yes.
including the Rafale. You've got the Rafale, you've got the F-15. Fun fact, my favorite aircraft, but I still don't know what works here. When I say favorite aircraft, I mean favorite aircraft technically, not for this contract. I'm just saying, what is the point of all of this? So it circles back to the beginning of your question, which is that why couldn't the Navy and the Air Force sit together and just negotiate this deal together? I'm saying we've got a huge deal, which is a requirement, which is about double the capacity of the number of Rafales we're already contracting. And we're still not thinking of shutting that down and saying, okay, let's save some costs and just negotiate a larger deal and make this all about the Air Force. There was a report by Shishir Gupta in the Hindustan Times a couple of days ago, which I'll bring into in more detail, about how the Dassault, the company, is now planning to acquire land in very close to where we are doing this podcast, in Jewar in Uttar Pradesh, to build an MRO facility. That's maintenance, repair and overhaul. That's what MRO stands for the Rafale, which could potentially expand into a manufacturing facility for the Rafale. Which means the Dassault guys, who are obviously in it to gain something,
Of course.
are already trying to sweeten the whole thing. Sweeten the picture by saying, हम Rafale बनाएंगे India में. हम खुद बनाएंगे. We'll partner with someone and we'll make the Rafale here in India. Now, if that is going to be one of the mandatory elements of this MRFA that we're talking about, which is basically supposed to be a made in India effort, then what is all this? What is all this negotiation happening? We're sitting and negotiating for 26 fighters. And let me be even more specific. It doesn't even have to be about the Rafale. It could be any other fighter.
Yeah.
It could literally be about any other fighter. But if you've already chosen, two governments have chosen the Rafale. Two governments, the UPA government and then this government, have chosen the Rafale. So they actually agree on the fighter, which is amazing in these times. They both agreed on the fighter. UPA government chose the Rafale, this government closed the deal. And there's no disagreement. Then you go for it then. If you had chosen a different fighter, you should have gone for that. Yeah. How many different contests are you going to have? So that's the point.
Yeah, I'm very glad with your impassioned answer, because I think the problem that the two of us have is with the contest and not with the idea of getting more jets. Because and it's not as if the Rafale did not win the contest. There was a contest, the MMRCA.
Full.
The Air Force chose the Rafale. The UP agreed with it, and the deal fell through for other reasons.
Yeah,
It was not as though we were not happy with the fighter jet, or the Boeing was better, but ye stopgap mein kharidna pada because hame urgent requirement tha. You've tested this fighter jet. You've said this is the best that we want, and everyone's happy with it. But for some reason you're gonna have this contest all over again, which makes zero sense to me. And I'm glad you brought up the part about, on a serious note, the part about, the report in Hindustan Times about Rafale, that's all, kind of looking to purchase land.
Yeah.
I think that's more of a sort of a push to the Indian government. Ki, bhai, dekho, we are
Companies do that all the time,
Yeah, because I think that would then kind of make Rafale the sort of the mainstay of the Air Force, the future mainstay of the Air Force, like the Sukhoi has been. And something struck me while I was thinking about the Sukhois and the mainstays well a bit, that how both the Air Force's mainstay, the Sukhoi, and the Navy's mainstay, the MiG-29s, were kind of aircraft that were forced on them. Because if you remember the previous episode, you told us this nice tale about how the Sukhoi 30 was kind of forced on the Air Force, even though it's a great aircraft. That's it. Right. Cool. As we bring this episode to a close, sort of give us we talked about mission profiles. We talked about that viral moment from an early episode where you said naval fighter pilots are better and cooler than the Air Force fighter pilots. I kind of sense that, you kind of did not mention that right now because you were kind of scared of, maybe, getting into that. I should just say it. That's what Shiv said in that clip that went massively viral.
Oh, believe me, you don't have to say it. Everyone knows it's out there. It's permanent on the internet now.